All right. Chat, let me know if the volume on me is good. Obviously, the music won't be here in about 45 seconds. Sweet. Let me test to make sure this command works. Boom. All right. As some of you can see, I am clearly alone tonight, which kind of sucks, not going to lie. So, for context, Paul is unfortunately not able to make it tonight. The Army, Uncle Sam has him by the balls and is not able to be here. So, with that in mind, we will be turning the call line open to everybody. Some people are going to say that's ripping off Hotline League. I will say that call-in shows have been a thing forever. And even though people consider me to be the Travis Gafford Mini, and that's the running joke to a certain extent, we're still doing it anyways. But I do have two people that I'm bringing on just before we open the call lines up to everybody. The first is going to be Jay. He is part of media. He works on Washington. You guys will be able to recognize his name on the LCS All-Pro voting, the MVP voting, and it's just a good friend of mine that we got to hang out a good bit when we were out in San Francisco. The second will be the doctor himself, Dr. Jordan Tsai, Dr. Respawn, for those of you that might know his work with, I believe, Evil Geniuses in the past, or I don't know if it's Evil Geniuses ongoing. I should really fact check this, which, speaking of that, let me do that now, just to make sure. I know he's with Cloud9. Okay, yeah, but Cloud9 and Evil Genius is currently ongoing, and is their physical therapist. He also owns his own practice and does everything there. But I'll pull him in a bit. And first, though, I need Jay to join any sort of room here so I can drag him in. Once he gets in here, we'll be good. How are we doing tonight, though, chat? Hope all is well. Because we're going to get a wide variety of takes tonight, figured I'd wear the Optic jersey just to show true loyalty. There he is. There he is. I can always tell that profile picture because he got the graduation jacket going, the Washington Monument in the background. It's like he just got off the hill.
A little bit. It's been a crazy day, my friend.
What all's been happening?
Well, I bumped into Bernie Sanders, almost, actually.
Really?
Literally, so I'm getting in the door, and I'm tired because I took an Uber this morning, and the traffic was awful, trying to get from DC. And then I end up I'm getting the door, I'm just scrambling to get all my stuff, and I'm just looking around because I knew we had the Howard Schultz hearing this morning, and Bernie is right to my left. I'm like, oh, I didn't say anything to him because I know from actually being in the elevator with him once or twice, he gets bombarded a lot, and I feel bad for the poor guy.
I'm curious, what's the average age of people that bombard him?
Our age.
That's the point that I wanted to make. It seems like of any congressman, he has the largest disparity between his actual age and the average age of his audience.
Yeah. A friend of mine is a staffer of his, and I texted them the other day. I'm like, hey, I bumped into your boss in the elevator. She was like, oh, he was in a really bad mood that day, but did you get to say hi to him? I'm like, well, I think I know what caused it. No, when we were trying to get into the elevator, a bunch of people came up to him. He was just getting his lunch. And me being a staffer on the Hill, and I'm just like, I wanted to say hello to him, but obviously I don't want to come across as a Bernie fan
Yeah.
because it's like I want to be in a professional environment, and I mean I respect Senator Sanders. I respect every senator, decisions or not. They're in the offices for a reason, somehow.
I'm,
Controversial take,
I'm glad you added the somehow in there afterwards.
somehow in there.
That is more of an insult to their constituents than it is to them.
I have 2 degrees in politics. I've studied polling too much to know what's going on.
Uh,
But in enough case, thank you for having me. I'm so glad that every time you and I always chat. I'm sad you're not going to Raleigh with us,
I know.
but it's gonna be a fun time.
I hope I can make it fun for everybody here in New York City, though. We actually have a new venue that I don't think very many people have been to. It's basically, have you ever heard of Coexist? I know they have some locations
I
outside of New York.
I've heard of it. I mean, obviously, I'm not too far from the city. I was
Yeah.
literally there last week. Um, it's not. I've heard of it, and honestly, like if I didn't book my flight for Raleigh, I'd be joining you, helping you out with everything on that end.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping it's going to be good. They have like 2 floors in this area. One's a little bit more casual, the other one's more bar setting.
Right?
Uh,
They have something like that in DC.
I've always preferred more of the bar setting, but then again, I kind of grew up in that environment, so
Right.
I'm curious to see. For finals, we'll probably get anywhere between like 50 to 60, give or take. I'm curious to see what the split is between people that go with like the pure casual like gamer environment or like the bar side of things.
I think you'll have an interesting split, especially because, I mean, you were not in Chicago.
No.
In Chicago, when we were looking at the North American fans, a lot of people I were talking to were a little on the older side for sure. I did interview a couple families. A piece that I never got to upload for Game Elevate just because the microphone's audio outside the United Center was a little rough, especially that one day where it downpoured.
Yeah.
Um, Walking in the suits in the downpour, not fun. Would not
Okay.
recommend.
You are one of the only people that I know that actually wears like a full suit to events, and I respect the hell out of it.
I mean, you know me, my background's in traditional journalism, so if I'm not, I would get laughed out of a room if I wasn't wearing a suit.
But not in the room that's full of gamers that barely know what anything other than sweatpants are.
You're not
There,
wrong.
you're fine.
No, I always, as I was talking to someone about it today, actually, or the other day, I'm like, look, I just want to say that I'm to the players. I know that it may be intimidating with someone with a suit, but for me, I always want to say, hey, I want to be worth your time. I want to give you a quality interview as someone who's interviewed politicians, as someone who's interviewed leaders of governments. I want to show that, like, hey, I want to respect your time. I want to give you valid questions. I mean, I'm a fan of esports, but I'm also a professional in the industry, I'd say. And I want
Yeah.
to prove that we can have a good interview and it's not just like, oh, it's just some person off the street. I'm like, no, I want to prove that I belong here and I want to earn the respect of the individuals who are in this room.
I don't want to take up any more of your time with my questions because this is ultimately
Uh,
your take of what you wanna
oh,
address.
oh
So
yeah, no.
I'll let you go at it. What do you want to talk about?
So I joked this afternoon on Twitter. I was like, we should just talk about Sweeney Todd because you and I are theater people.
I
You can see
just
my
heard
screens.
I just heard 20 minutes of theater talk about everything Sweeney Todd because Emily just got
I'm
home from
seeing it
work.
in
So
2 weeks. I'm so excited.
Annalie
But
Ashford is gonna win the Tony. That's all I'll say.
that's what I've heard too. But I want to talk about Eastern League of Legends actually.
Oh,
So I know you are a primarily Western fan of
yes.
LCS LEC, but I want to get your Eastern takes as someone who studies. I've someone who studies foreign affairs, everything. Eastern League of Legends is always interesting because they're always the heavy favorites.
Yeah.
And there are 2 teams right now, T1 and JDG for LCK and LPL respectively, that are the tops. But I'm curious, who else are you keeping your eye on?
I this is gonna be interesting.
I
So
I thought long and hard about this. I'm like, what am I gonna
I
throw at him?
I have little to no knowledge of any of the players on individual teams when it comes to the East, barring obviously T1. It is impossible not to know who is on that roster. And it also helps that the roster has not changed. Hanwha Life has my attention because of Zeka. Zeka made a absolute name for himself during Worlds for me. That now it's just a name that's in the back of my mind. That even though I have not watched a single LCK or LPL game this entire year, I still know what Hanwha Life is doing, thanks to Twitter updates.
Yeah.
Uh, on the LPL side, honestly, I have no clue. Like it's one of those that if I ever want to get into the LPL, I need a team to get me there. Which this might be a controversial take. Uh, Screw TSM if they were to ever leave the LCS for ditching on North America, but them going to LPL would be the reason why I start watching the LPL. It would
Right.
finally give me a team to latch onto, to give me that push in.
Right. So the other team I mentioned was JD Gaming, and obviously you were at Worlds this year. I think you'll know some of these players who are on the team. Their roster is 369, Kanavi,
Yeah.
Knight, Missing, and some little known 80 carry by the name of Ruler jumped ship.
Wait,
Ruler jumped ship from Korea to the LPL.
who was there? Wasn't Viper with them?
Hope was there.
Oh, Hope. Okay, that.
So Hope, I know that because I've interviewed. Hope was probably one of the coolest interviews I've done when I was doing interviews with at during Worlds.
Yeah.
Hope was really cool. I was sad to see him leave, but the minute they brought in Ruler, that
It's
was
a night and day difference.
Yeah. There's two rosters I wanted to bring your attention to. I know you've watched the highlight reels a lot. How well do you know Weibo Gaming?
I know that they're Weibo in general is the social media platform. Weibo was Weibo the team that pulled the trigger, or no, that was BLG that pulled the trigger on the whole Doggo,
Doggo Uzi.
Doggo Uzi thing. In that case, no, I do not know much about Weibo.
Yeah. Here's an interesting roster for you. I'm curious your takes on this. The Shy,
Ooh,
Karsa,
Okay.
Xiaohu,
uh-huh.
Light, and I believe it's Crisp. So you have a world champion.
Yeah.
You have actually two world champions. The Shy is a world champ. Two-time MSI champion and Xiaohu, obviously.
Yes.
Karsa, I know you started getting into esports relatively later, but Karsa
his name still rings up. Like, so 2017, I remember his name being thrown around a good bit.
Yeah, Karsa is one of the players that I wanted to interview him so long. He's one of my top players. He was on Top Esports for a while. He was on the legendary Flash Wolves with Maple, who's currently on TSM.
Yeah.
Sword Art. Forgetting who they're.
Wasn't 369 with them for a bit?
I don't think so.
Well, who am I thinking? I thought there was somebody else. 369 is the Kled main, right?
369 was the one. He was at Worlds this year.
I know that there was a Kled main back in like 2016, 2017 era that I'm trying to remember the name of, but I thought it was 369. Or...
You may be thinking of you should know me. YS. Jesus, what's his name?
No, I saw his intro this year that was posted on Twitter whenever, because like the LPL has their walkouts and can do individual things.
Yeah, if Jackie is at Raleigh, which I would not be surprised if she wasn't, I love Jackie. I will ask her. I'm like, where are our player interviews, or where are our player walkouts?
Is she not going to be at finals? I thought she said she was back.
She will be.
Okay,
she will be. But I'm just saying, if she is, I'm just gonna talk to her. I'm like, you need to do these player interviews, or player walkouts. Excuse me.
So I have a quick counter question for you based on what you just said. If you could ask Jackie one question and one question only at finals, what would that be?
So I'm biased here. I have interviewed Jackie before. Jackie is probably one of the nicest human beings I've ever chatted with. So a lot of my questions I've already asked her a lot of things. One of the questions I'm curious, I'm going to definitely talk to her because you and I know.
Sorry, accident. I pressed the wrong button. My bad.
So you hung up on me.
Sorry, my bad. Hold up, the video is going to pop out as well.
I gotcha.
Right, there we go.
One of the things I'm going to ask her is how can you get the third-party media involved in the next split? I think we've been seeing a lot of community interaction with not many people understanding what third-party media is. I posted on Twitter. I was like, "Hey, I have a master's degree in journalism. Ask me my questions." And I haven't been able to film my uh, MVP ballot video yet because the hill's been nuts. Um,
Are you gonna do the thing with Degon whenever he? I'm not sure when that's happening yet, but
been contacted about that yet. So, have you been contacted?
no, I haven't heard. I know he tweeted out that he's gonna put something together, which I think will
Yeah,
be good.
we'll see on that. But I would love to be on the analyst desk. Like people like Emily Rand were the reason I became an esports journalism or esports journalist. And I'm friends with Jacob Wolf.
Yep.
So like again, that's someone who I've looked up to for as writers. But include us on there. I know people like Degon, yourself, myself, Faisal, Nick Geraci. I know Travis is often frequently mentioned, but I know people would still love to see him on the broadcast every now and then.
Yeah.
I apologize. There's so many people. Ethan Garcia. I know
Yeah.
Carver. I'm forgetting.
Look,
There's so many people.
I will
blanking.
direct everybody to the ballot. All the people, like I know there was a lot of flame given out to some people for their picks, and by all means there are some that I do disagree with myself that I'm more than happy to have the conversation, and I not to single Robert out, but I think he knows that he's received the most amount of flack from people on his picks. Every single person on that list deserves your follow because they talk about League of Legends equally as much, if not more than me. And they can all give you their logic for their rankings. And if you don't agree with it, fine. But just at least understand where they're coming from. Give them that chance and don't write them off as a nobody.
Right. I know Robert is probably one of the hardest working individuals in the third party media industry. I Every time I see him at finals, he's always carrying a giant camera. He and Michael Tremini are two of the most respected, in my opinion, two of the most respected individuals in the industry. Myself, I'll say like I come from traditional journalism, so my questions are more oriented in that line, and mine are more storytelling questions that I learned while attending graduate school for journalism.
Yeah.
I know people like yourself, you're diving into the TikTok thing, which I worry after the last week on the Hill, what's going to happen.
Look, I don't even want to talk about that bill. That is a disaster.
Yeah, it's complicated. There's a lot I can say, but I've been covering that for my job, so I don't want to get in trouble on that front.
Yeah. Where can people follow you for your professional work?
Right. So there are a couple places. So for my Twitter, it is at the letter J, letter T, letter S. All three are capitalized. Silver. So it's JT Silver, the number 4, and I hope you can post this in in the chat or something like that.
It's already in chat.
Yeah. Otherwise, I will be at Raleigh. You will see me in a suit, as we talked about a little bit on in the beginning of the show today. Do not be afraid to say hello. I will have the media badge here. I'd love to talk to you. I know I do have some people who are like, "Hey, I like your work. Come say hello to me." I don't bite. I promise. I'm loud and obnoxious. I know that, but I don't bite.
You never know when you're going to end up in the back of a taxi with Jay going to see the Golden Gate Bridge. You legitimately just never know.
That was probably one of the coolest days of finals. Like when David and I, both of our pictures, we have stuff in the Golden Gate Bridge. But it was probably one of the coolest experiences because you never get to hang out one-on-one with some of your fellow colleagues in esports. And then, we talked a lot. We were talking about the Cloud9 changes when they were first being leaked out, and we were talking about M&S and things like that. We were talking just about theater, because I know your wife does theater. You're a fan of theater. Obviously, you can see the posters behind me.
Yep.
But you never know, and David and I became very, very good friends, I would say, and you never know who you meet during esports. So speaking of which, I have to finish some work for Capitol Hill because, of course, it's an honor to be on the show, and I cannot wait to see some of you in Raleigh. We're going to figure out a time when I'm in New York City next, but it was a pleasure to be here.
At minimum, it'll be for summer finals, so I look forward to having you here, my friend, and best of luck with everything work-wise and in North Carolina. Keep killing it.
Sounds good.
Have a go, man.
Will do.
All right. Absolutely love Jay. The next guy on here, many of you may know. Don't really think I have to give him much of an introduction. Jordan, my man, how we doing? Oh, he's muted. He's still muted. He'll figure it out eventually.
How's it going?
There he is.
What is up? Do I need camera on? Hold on.
If you don't have to, if you don't want to, don't feel any pressure to.
Do this. Hold on. All right.
You just wanted to come on and show how jacked you are. I get it. Jesus Christ, dude, chill.
I did work out today, but that's every day.
So did I, and I don't have that look to me. So you know what?
It's a process, man.
Just how's everything going?
15 years. It's been a wild week. I mean, anyone who follows me on Twitter has probably seen me a bit more active the last couple days.
Getting your daily dose of Thorin. Always always good to know.
Dude, I just can't get away.
I'm so happy that I haven't had to deal with that at any point. I blocked him back during the Call of Duty days when he went on a few really bad rants there and just never looked back.
It's so weird because I don't interact with him. I never talk about him. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's one of those things where somebody has to cause drama. You know what I actually said though? Someone actually tweeted about like, oh, I feel bad for Jordan. All this stuff. I was like, this is actually such a cool opportunity for me to actually express some of what I was thinking about the whole situation without overtly just pulling it out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like I've been talking to EG and obviously there was a lot of discussion about like, how much can I say, all that stuff. And, as a contractor, I'm sort of limited. They're like, please just don't say anything. I was like, all right, I'm just basically going to stay mostly quiet. I'll defend things that I feel like need defending. But when my name gets pulled out and they're talking about like what I did, then, I mean, I feel like that's kind of free game, right? I can definitely defend my clinical competency, and that's kind of what I did. So it gave a cool opportunity to actually talk a little bit about the situation from my point of view, and also actually give some context as to how the medical system works in esports. And I think it raised the opportunity to have some good conversations about what needs to change. Because, although I don't think it was as bad a situation as some articles would make it seem, it definitely does indicate that there are failure points that need to be addressed in the future. So,
and I think that's a wider arching point that goes even well beyond just this issue. It's like we are still a very young industry with very young people involved. That there's so many steps that need to happen to get us to any level of protection for players, and there's a lot of work to be done.
Yep. Yeah, I think I don't want to spend too much time talking about that because obviously there's too much going on that. But yeah, I appreciate you for having me. And I saw your tweet and I was like, oh man, I could talk about some local esports, especially since it's a rather large week.
Yeah.
With games, I feel bad for you. I know the 100 Thieves, we're sort of the dark horse coming into it, but yeah, it is what it is.
Look, our time came. It sucks. I'm glad. Honestly, this is one of those things that you never want to wish on somebody's downfall. But if we were gonna lose, I'd rather lose now. I'm fine with us learning the lessons that we need to, our players developing. And you know what? If this is one split that we needed to learn, that Tenacity and Busio can take a lot of lessons from.
Yeah.
Whatever happens with other players from there is what it is. But like, this is a good
hype,
step
right?
that will build. And I have faith that Tenacity and Busio will be around in the LCS space for 5, 6, 10 plus years to come.
I am maybe the most excited about Busio than I've ever been of any player, like rookie just coming out like as a support player, right? Because support's historically a weak role in NA. I've talked to a lot of very high level supports. I'm good friend, Vulcan, even chatted with him about that preseason. And he's like, support is the one role. If you are an aspiring pro and you really want to get noticed, switch to support and get really good at support. You're competing in a much smaller pool. And he's like, the vast majority of high elo supports are just not anywhere close to where they need to be to compete at a higher level. Like,
do you think that's the nature of the role to a certain extent? Because support is one of the least popular roles in the game already, let alone the fact that North America being an FPS genre before anything else is very like high damage octane, or like, I don't know, like support is kind of goes against the general philosophy of like a North American gamer, more or less.
I mean, as a support man, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. No, I think it's partially that, right? There's less less people playing it, which means less competition, which means overall skill level is lower. But also, I think it's just a quality, like it's sort of a systemic problem of if most of the supports are not very good, you don't have to be very good to compete against most other. You know what I mean? It's kind of that like redundant issue of, you know, you don't have to be that good to compete against most supports in high elo NA. So it kind of waters down the competition level a bit.
When the floor is
So,
lower, you have a better chance of getting there.
Yeah, and it's not to knock, you know, any of the pro sports out there or any of the other high level sports. This is mostly like, this is not purely my opinion. I'm kind of basing this on talking with actual pros, you know, in LCS who have been at the highest level. Right? Like Vulcan's been dominating NA for 5 years, you know, 6 years. He's consistently top 3. So.
And not to criticize, like this is gonna be taken as a backhanded compliment, but it kind of has to be. Like the other support that's up there with Vulcan right now is a guy who just started playing it 2.5 years ago. So like, if that doesn't tell you where the bar is at, then
and it feels bad, especially because, you know, like guys who would historically put at the top level with him, I think, you know, Core JJ, like he's kind of fallen off a little bit, right? Like the last 2 seasons have been arguably the 2 worst of his career, and you know, he hasn't had terrible teams, honestly, all things considered. You know, I think this splits iteration of TL has been one of the more underperforming compared to what we would expect. But I can't say that it was a bad team on paper. I think most people had TL top 4, right?
Yeah. Okay. So question for you, piggybacking off of that then. Not specific to Team Liquid, because I know with you being involved with EG and C9, you can't necessarily speak to their situation. But what do you make of the whole Eastern mentality of we are going to grind more than anybody else, or like the work ethic culture question of is it worth it to grind 16 hours versus grind 11 or 12, optimizing those as much as possible and using the other 4 for literally anything else to develop other skills, or at least chill your brain out for a bit?
That's a really good question. It's something I've been heavily trying to change culture on in NA with all the teams I've worked with, and every time I have a chance to converse with a coach, analyst, pro player, anybody, like I will try to bring it up. I think that NA solo queue and the way that the competitive environment is here doesn't lend itself to Eastern philosophy working well. It just doesn't. You see this across the board. Every single pro player that comes in from the East inevitably has this drop off, right? And it's because they want, and people call, you know, oh, you went to NA, your hands fell off or whatever. I mean, that's partially true. Why do you think that is? It's because our solo queue environment is just so much worse. And so it's counterproductive in a lot of times to even grind solo queue, because you're literally getting worse at the game a lot of times. And I know that sounds like a meme, but actually though, like a lot of pros end up finding out that, well, when you play with bad habits, guess what? You get used to those things. You go to the East, those things get punished. You're playing on higher ping. You're playing against players who are mechanically and knowledge-wise worse than the vast majority of players in solo queue in other regions. So it's like you spend enough time doing that, you start to adopt habits. It's like if you went into a bronze game and you played nothing but bronze lobbies for the next 2 weeks, and then you jump back into a gold or plat game, you're kind of going to get shit on.
Oh yeah, you're going to be making decisions that you should not be making in gold.
Exactly. And that effect occurs on a very, very large scale, and it's exacerbated by the more hours you play. And so I think we saw that the most. I said this early season. I said Prince is going to dominate early, and then he's going to completely fall off. And it's going to be that same classic. You come to NA, you cannot practice the same way. You cannot do what you're used to doing. You don't have the same team culture you're used to. Even if you try to bring it here, how many times has that happened? Never. Well.
No.
And then you can't rely on your traditional methods. So then you're lost. Now you're trying to figure out mid-season, how do I get better again? And so that's kind of what we saw, right? There was that drop-off point. He maybe figured some. I don't know him at all. I haven't seen Flyquest at all. I don't know anything about how Flyquest operates. He fell off a little bit, right? He had a rough couple of weeks, and then kind of picked it back up near the end. And now he's obviously playing well again. Maybe playoff buff. Maybe it's a You know, I've heard some stuff about Prince from other players that I don't know if true or not. Right, take it with a grain of salt. I'm spreading rumors now, but I've heard he tends to run it a bit in scrims, and that's not just in NA. Like I
Hey,
heard he's a bit
you
of
know
a
what?
scrim.
I'm ultimately fine with that because JoJo's done the same thing.
Yeah,
And
Jojo likes the limit test for sure.
to address two of the comments that are coming up in chat, somebody said, "Well, what about Berserker and Impact?"
Yep.
You're not gonna have like
You
there's
know,
it's not
I can.
you're not gonna have people that fall into every single like not every pro is gonna come over here and fall off. It
You
just
know,
so happens that the
yeah.
majority are that, but there are always going to be exceptions to the rule.
It's actually very different because specifically, and I can talk about those two a little bit more. I know them very well. We'll talk about Impact first. Impact does not play a lot of solo queue. I think for the last 5 years, Impact's solo rank, like solo queue rank, has been somewhere around Diamond 1.
So what does he do to practice then?
A
Or
lot
does
of
he?
VOD review.
Okay.
A lot of VOD review. A lot of watching other regions. A lot of VOD analysis. A lot of 1v1s, and he takes scrims very seriously.
Okay.
Champs queue. You'll see him in Champs queue a lot more than a lot of the other players on his teams.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's also, though, you have to realize Impact has always been a cerebral player. He's known for analyzing the game at a higher level, and not just his role, but every single role, every single lane, every single champion. He knows at a greater level than a lot of people who play those roles. So he's a very, very, and that's why I said, man, when EG lost him this offseason, I was like, that's going to be a big hit. That's a huge hit to them because it wasn't just that, you know, he's part of the big three shot calling, right? It was Vulcan Inspired and Impact kind of directing the whole team. But Impact was one who was telling all of them how to also kind of think about their roles differently, like matchups that they weren't comfortable with, that they weren't familiar with. He was the one coaching them on that. Like, hey, try this. He would be 1v1ing a lot of players. I remember 2 years ago when Jizuke was on the team, I remember seeing Impact and Jizuke staying after scrims for like 3 hours just running 1v1 matchups to learn at what point do you have kill pressure at level 3, like Jax versus Jarvan or something. Like it was something so simple and unique. And neither of them play those champions except, well, I mean, Impact plays Jax obviously, but like, you know, no, they don't need to know how to play Jarvan, but they wanted to see so they could limit test later on, like, oh, what is this going to look like?
Yeah.
When do I win this combo? You know? And so he's always been a super hard worker and just not in the same way. So in some ways, I think Impact's work ethic and his approach to the game epitomizes what will make you successful in a North American region. It's not more solo queue.
Yeah. I've always thought of it as not do the bare minimum because that's going to come off really wrong, but do what you need to do to get to the international events. Preserve your time, preserve your mental, and make sure whenever it does come time, whenever it's time to go over to Europe for MSI or go to Korea for Worlds, understand that that's when that grind mentality comes in, because then grinding actually does make a difference. Then you're actually like the amount of time that you're putting in is going to be a 1-to-1 translation of what you'll see on stage.
And this is yeah, exactly. This is what I'm talking about, is that these people are not lazy. These players are not lazy. When they go to boot camp, they grind. Like Blabber, I think I want to say he like 75 games or something in the first week that he was there. Like he was just ungodly amounts of hours. Like they're putting in 10 plus hours straight when they go to Korea to boot camp. They want to grind. They just understand, especially the veterans, that in NA grinding is usually net negative. It's usually net negative for your skill progression, your mental, your burnout. Like it's just not positive, because you will get 3 to 4 games in a row where either you're getting win traded, or you're getting a one trick on your team, or you're getting, you know, a streamer for funning it. Like it's unplayable a lot of times, like half of their games. So
then the point that a lot of people will have, that I saw Sean bring up in chat, disagreeing about the Worlds thing, it from your experience, because you've been with the teams, are our players grinding at or playing or putting the same amount of hours in as the World Championship teams are when we're there?
When they're there, they're putting in a lot more hours. Yeah, I've never. Okay, I'll caveat. I've never traveled with them internationally, so I don't know for sure. But I know at Worlds, when it was in NA, obviously they were not putting in comparable hours because it's still in NA. So that same issue still exists. They were scrimming a lot though. So normal scrim schedule, this split was it's two split scrim schedules. You have 3 in the afternoon, 3 in the evening. So they do blocks of 4 to 5 games.
Yeah.
Actually, it's usually blocks of 3 games, 3 to 4 games. But now that it's in playoffs, they're playing 5 games. I think 4 or 5. They were doing that when all the other teams were here, but they were really trying to stack their scrim schedules. And it's like if T1's here, you're playing T1 and DRX same day, and then you're trying to fit another one in with an LPL team if you can. And like there's a lot more intent to trying to grind in that sense of putting more scrims on the schedule.
Yeah.
But nobody's grinding solo queue because it doesn't make sense here. Even going to EU, they would grind more solo queue than here. And part of the problem is also solo queue culture. I see the question in chat about Berserker. I'm going to talk about it in a sec. But when you grind in NA, games are also traditionally twice as long as any other region. In China and in Korea, if a game goes real south in the first 5 minutes, they are FFing.
I would like to think of myself as part of that problem, and I'm very proud of that.
They end the game. They do not want a game going past 25 minutes in Korea, like ever. So this is actually the other thing. It magnifies that issue. If a player is in Korea boot camping and grinding, playing 10 hours, they're literally getting twice as many games in those 10 hours, if not 3 times as many, because their queue timers are instant. They're ending games in 15 minutes, and they're just able to grind out like mass amounts of games. Whereas in NA, you play for 10 hours, you might get 6 games, 7 games sometimes, and not including dodges, not including games that are completely not playable because champ select or whatever, not including you getting griefed. It's like that 10 hours sounds real not productive anymore.
So then the ultimate that unfortunately feeds into the penultimate question everybody asks is that possible to fix in North America?
Yeah, this is the philosophical thing that I only have theory. My theory is that we cannot beat China and Korea by playing like China and Korea. That's not possible. That's just not possible.
I mean, that's again, you're never going to beat somebody that's perfected in their own style at their own style.
And the thing is, that's assuming that they're not getting better. They're still progressing. They're still evolving. They're still improving, right? Like they're not getting worse. They're getting better. So we'll never catch them playing like that. I think what we have to do is we have to think about the game very differently. And this is something I've espoused a lot on before is if you look at when minor regions beat major regions, what do? They play the game incorrectly. They will break the meta. They will pick champs that you have not played in competitive, and they create high variance. You want as much variance as possible. You want as much variability as possible because now you're forcing these teams who have ground countless repetitions in something to now be in a situation in which they have never been in this situation. Yeah. And now you're just rolling the dice. I'll be honest. I don't think hands matter that much at that level. You take any NA player at the top level and you put them in Korea, you watch them mechanically, they keep up. Like they are not bad. I don't think it like people want to almost make it like it's sort of a genetic racist thing of like, oh, they have hands, we don't. No, you put Blabber in a 0 ping environment for a week. He's playing like an LPL. Yeah. He looks like an LPL jungler. Like he's insane.
I guess the conversation always shifts towards that, but I kind of want to pull it back to what is there ever going to come a time where we don't have to default to that high variance strategy? Is there ever going to be a point where we do have the ability to keep up with the LPL or LCK in the traditional styles that we think like the high,
I think there's a bunch of things that have to come together. One, NA teams, in my opinion, need to stop trying to diversify so much. This is something I saw a lot on a lot of teams is that they do something really, really well, right? Let's say EG last year spring, their late game was phenomenal, but halfway through near MSI, they decided, in order for us to compete against these other teams, we have to learn how to play early game. And so they started drafting a lot of early game comps. They started really focusing on early game, and they got better at it for sure. Did they get good enough to beat a Chinese LPL early game team in early game? Not really. No. And you could see it. They had the right draft, and they just could not execute it because the Chinese team, guess what? They've seen this before.
They know how to counter
it. You're talking like trying to play catch up again and beat them at a game that they were very comfortable with versus if they had played their style and doubled down on how do we perfect our style, right? Yes, they know we want to play late game. They're going to try to counter that by playing early game. how do we play our game even better so you cannot counter it? We survive for 20 minutes and now you're screwed. Like that's what my thing is. I'm a big believer in doubling down on strengths, not so much honing on weaknesses, because you end up mediocre and you end up sort of doing exactly what NA's done for the last 10 years, which is you get maybe out of groups and you have a very mediocre finish. That's you know. And then the other thing that has to happen is the meta has to actually favor us in that, right? So not only do you have to have a really, really strong understanding and competency in what it is that your gameplay is, like, oh, we're a really, really good late game team, right? So, and then also it just so happens, hey, Riot made it so that the meta favors late game comps. Hyper carries are very viable right now. All of that comes together, and all of a sudden we have a great run.
Yeah.
Like,
So
I mean that's just League though.
I don't know why my camera keeps freezing, but the underlying tone that I'm getting from that though is the passive admittance that likely we're not going to be able to solve the underlying factors to put us on an even playing field no matter what. So for example, the player base issue, the path to pro, the internet issues that exist within the infrastructure of America, console versus PC culture here, and the split between the two.
Mhm.
It sounds to me like there's a understanding that that's just never going to change.
I wouldn't say never. I
Or
think
not in the
actually,
immediate future, like not in the next 5 to 6 years at least.
I mean, I would like to see it happen in the next 3 to 5. But what I mean by that is that with the recession looming, a lot of teams have really, really cut back on budget, like severely cut back, obviously, right? Across the board, everyone's cut back. And so what that does inevitably to any industry is it forces efficiency to go up. It forces people to revisit old structures and old procedures and figure out how do we make this more efficient? How do we get the most bang for our buck? Obviously, we can no longer afford to import multi-million-dollar superstars, right?
Yep.
That hasn't saved us in the past, and it will not save us in the future. And so it's going to force teams, and it's going to force players, and it's going to force coaches and everybody up all the way down the chain to figure out more sustainable pipelines. And the only way to get talent to that level is to have a sustainable pipeline coming up. And so I think there's a lot more interest now in collegiate. There's a lot more interest in developing relationships between collegiate, amateur, all the way to pro. And we've already seen with the NACL, right? Like the formation of that league, competition and the amateur scene has gone way up.
Yeah.
And that I think is the long-term solution in 5 years. If we could raise the overall bar of competition here, we're not going to do that through solo queue. We're going to do that through strong systems of like leagues with parity.
Yeah.
And I love that the LCS this year has a lot of parity, right? The
I
top
agree.
6 teams are almost interchangeable. Like any good day, you could see one of those teams beating the other one 3-0. That's actually what's going to drive change. And we see it, capitalism, right? The more competition there is, somebody has to rise up. Somebody has to figure something out that's different, and they will stand head over heels over everyone else.
Yeah.
So
my biggest thing that I want to see to help push that along, the LCS needs to use the assets that it has to better push the systems underneath it. And I'm not referencing any Challengers League. I think Riot's already done enough for that. I'm specifically speaking about, and looking at North Carolina specifically. There are how many amazing colleges there with tens of thousands of students that likely don't even know that their school has an esports program, or might not even, they might know what esports is, but they don't fully know. If the LCS wasn't activating on UNC's campus, on NC State's campus, on Wake Forest campus, on Duke's campus, like if we're not even at 10% of students on those campuses that know that the LCS is going to be within an hour drive from them, then we failed.
right.
Like
I
we
agree.
need to be activating with those audiences as much as
yeah.
as humanly possible, and that will start changing the culture around things, getting more awareness for it. Maybe the college kid that got injured in football might want to try out League of Legends now. Or maybe he already played it a few years ago and wants to come back. I don't know.
I mean, I think one of my favorite takes that you've had is about the increase in regional travel events. I know it's not very popular at the LCS level because, like, obviously it costs teams a lot more money. But even doing exhibition matches, right? Like,
Oh my God, yeah.
like if you could just figure out a way to like like a couple times a year, get like all the teams into a different location. Maybe like I was not a fan of the LEC's new format, but from a business perspective, I like it a lot. Right? If you have 3 events, that's 3 opportunities to be at different locations around the country. Get a live audience, and it's hype. Like people actually who don't even know the game get into that because like, well, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
why are there so many people in my city all of a sudden? And they see the banners and they see all the stuff, and it's really really cool. And I think that would definitely, like, in the end, yeah, it has to drive interest in the game. Okay. I want to really quickly go back because I
The
promised.
Berserker.
I promised, and I didn't get to it. So Berserker is an outlier in my opinion because he does play a lot of solo queue, and he has not mechanically fallen off at all. Like I think he's still pretty freaking good. I think the thing with Berserker is he it's hard to explain. He has like a really interesting. I talk to him a lot. Obviously his English is improving, but sometimes it's hard to convey more nuanced explanations of things. But I always ask players like, "Oh, how are things going? Like, what are you doing different? How's your practice going? Are you playing a lot more?" Obviously, that ties into the physical aspect, but I kind of want to get an idea of like their mentality and what their approach to getting better is. And Berserker is one of those players who he plays a lot of games, but then he talks to a lot of people. So he is always interacting with his teammates and I think learning from them. I think he still has a very maybe it's a T1 drilled in thing. The way he approaches improvement in the game is very systematic, I think. I think he works really well with his coaches. I think he takes feedback really well. He's actually a very cerebral player and he understands the game at a very, very high level from a Korean standpoint. And it was what the hard part for him was when he came to NA, transitioning to an NA style League of Legends. Yeah. But I know Blabber was very, very big and very instrumental in helping him kind of understand C9's philosophy and how they play, which is very different than T1.
It's interesting to hear how much, like, especially this year, it's come out more and more that Blabber's having this massive influence on C9 and just becoming this like face of the organization style player over the last year and a half. That's like,
my first year working with C9 was Blabber's rookie year, and I remember Jack. So I got a lot of respect for Jack. Jack can make a lot of mistakes at times, but he also has such an eye for talent, and it's hard to explain. Like Jack, I remember saying Blabber's going to be the future. His rookie, he's like, this kid, I'm going to build a team around him. Fudge was the next piece of that. So Fudge and Blabber were kind of his 2 cornerstones that he saw very early on. The other kid that I mentioned this in a tweet a while back, but nobody realizes this, but Jack was the first person to believe in TENS.
Really?
TENS was a like a division 2, like a tier 2 CSGO player that was kind of up and coming. He was 18. Nobody really thought much of him. Jack picked him up for the CSGO team as a 6th man. He used to practice the team. He was okay. He was mechanically very good, but like it was like, I don't know if this kid's gonna make it. According to most other coaches, most other industry leaders. After the original that CSGO roster disbanded after the 2018 major win, right? Like they kind of broke apart. TENS was still there. They sold the entire roster the year after that. He kept TENS, and he said, "I don't care. This kid he's different, and he's going to be a phenom." 6 months or a year later, Valorant comes out and all that. TENS switches over to Valorant. Jack sells him to Sentinels, and the kid's an immediate superstar. Like he has some way of knowing. He just has a really good eye for talent. I think. It's not.
There's people like that though. Like you gotta. Everybody in business will have their different strengths that they have. Yeah. Those that have an eye for spotting talent, or like there's a lot of people on social media that like have an eye for spotting virality before it happens. Right. Having that ability is just irreplaceable.
Yeah. And I think Blabber is one of those people because he brings so much to the table. I compare him to like Impact, right? And also, Impact played on C9 as well. There's a lot of players who've come through that system, and it speaks very highly to the way they organize. It's kind of the meme, right? The systems of C9.
Oh god, yeah. Your support CSD.
That's. I feel really bad for Haley because she's actually very, very good at her job, and it's like that got memed so hard, and it was just I think what it was that they have all these stats. And they don't actually want to put out meaningful stats that they have because people will then know. So it's like, we're going to give support difference in CS. Like
It
but
just
they,
sucks because like
yeah.
had the tone been like a little bit more memey, like just a
Yeah.
little bit,
Yeah.
it would have shifted the way everybody talked about it, and
Yeah.
it would have been used still as a meme,
Of
obviously, but it
course.
wouldn't have
Of
been like
course.
the derogatory
Yeah.
nature
Yeah.
of it.
Right. And I felt so bad for her because I was like, after I saw her, I was like, I feel so bad that you're getting like ripped online for no reason. She's very good at her job. You know,
Yeah.
she's been very instrumental in how they approach the game. But yeah, I think Blabber is one of those players who brings not just obviously he's an amazing jungle talent. I've talked to a lot of analysts who've worked with LCK teams. I've talked to people who've like like Blabber is widely considered like the best NA jungler ever.
Yeah.
When he goes to other regions, he's like LPL players are watching his VODs. They're looking at his jungle routes. They're looking at how he
Wow.
redefines the game. The other player that I've heard that about,
Afro.
Inspired.
Well,
Inspired.
yeah.
Inspired. Well, I currently playing.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Inspired's the other one. So I was talking to another analyst, and they're like, Inspired, unlike he's different than Blobber. Like Inspired is like innovating jungle. Like he is coming up with stuff that other junglers have never done, and it's really cool to see. And he's a huge leader, and I think that's a big part of it. In League, we don't have clearly defined roles like we do in other sports yet. I think generally it sort of naturally evolves. But what I've seen successfully on both teams that I've worked with 3 teams, but the 2 that have continued consistent success, it's the jungler and they're shot calling almost everything.
Wow.
Like, and that's kind of what we've seen. Like Blabber and Inspired will direct the team to play. It's not about playing around them. It's
But no,
the
you're
team.
the
Right.
IGL.
Yeah,
Comparing
exactly.
it to CS:GO and Valorant.
Exactly. And so I think that's a big part of the team building that League fans don't quite understand as well. In CSGO and in FPS games, it's very established who the IGL is and how supporting players play around them. In League, it's a very organic process that develops. But I think the teams that have a good system in place for it can easily plug players in and have them do well, right? I said during our fantasy draft, I think this is FBI's year to pop off, right? Because like,
Yeah.
and he had an absolutely great split.
He had a damn good fantasy split.
And it's because though he didn't have to do very much. He was plug and play.
Yeah.
All right. He came in and they were very, very clear. Like this is how the team's gonna operate. Inspired and Vulcan are shot calling. You play this role, you do this thing, and they've integrated him really well. Someday had a much better split than last year. Well, we'll see if they can get to.
I will contest that because he was not.
He was really good.
Not robbed of MVP from summer, but he was. Last summer, I will argue, was his best split of his LCS professional career.
I'd say stat wise, but they also played top heavy. He was getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
this split EG is not going top very much. They're putting him on an island. He's actually doing well. Like he's not getting stomped in lane. He's actually winning lanes. He's solo killing people again, which is like not. See, the thing is,
everybody but Tenacity, might I add.
Tenacity's so good. I think Tenacity is he's a rookie.
Yeah,
he's a rookie, and you saw that. When he goes against players like Fudge abuses the rookiness in him, and he knows it. Like he knows it. Fudge plays very different against Tenacity. But at the same time, I think the raw mechanical abilities there, obviously, his champ pool, obviously, I think this was not a good meta for him.
No, I've been watching him long enough to know that he's got way bigger of a champ pool than this. And I know a lot of people are down on him right now. I'm not worried.
He's gonna be great. Fudge and Spring.
Yep.
His rookie year. Everyone's like, "Oh, what are you guys doing?"
It helped that they won his rookie split.
But he was being like dragged over. It wasn't
he like that was the first split that I ever did TikTok and social media on. Yeah. And I remember like the first meme that I ever did that somewhat popped off was a joke about the community basically like lashing out on Fudge and Fudge just wiping away all the tears with money. And it's just like I just had that gut feeling early on, and I'm glad it came true. I hate to cut this off though. I do got people waiting that want to come in and talk. Okay. I gotta turn this over to them.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate. I could talk about. I can talk about League all day. So I love this stuff. For everyone else out there who's going to Raleigh, I'll be there as well. So hopefully, say hi if you see me. I will hopefully be working with 2 of the teams there. We'll see. EG has to win a game on Friday, but or win a series.
And for those in
Cool.
chat, I just spammed Jordan's Twitter. Be sure to drop him a follow. He deserves every little bit of it. You can find out more information about his actual career. We kind of deviated away from that a little bit today, but thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Hope you have a good night.
You too. Take care.
See ya. All right, callers. I know we ran a little bit long on that one, but it is finally time to get some takes in. Let me just check the chat. Sean put us in at 10. Okay, the first one that was in today was the man himself with one of the more controversial takes that I'm sure Sean is really gonna like. But hit me with it. For those that don't know, because you changed your name 20 bazillion times, this is Nick, not Blue Jameer Nick, but Healy Nick.
I am Son Tzoomer right now, giver of Tzoomer wisdom.
Dude, you're one of those people that uses Blue Essence to change your name every other day. I hate it.
It's so true.
So,
God chosen Trundle, League of Legends.
What's your take? What are you gonna bless us with today?
Well, there's an option here. Do you want the game state one or the LCS one?
Give me the LCS one,
Right.
or whatever's the more spicy take. Sorry.
Right. Golden Guardians can and might win finals. I think they're the second best team left in playoffs.
Dude, heroin is one hell of a drug, but you don't need to take it before you make these calls. You are on crack if you think that they are going to even make it to finals. There's no way.
So, okay, let's see what's standing in their path here. We're assuming C9 wins because C9 bias here. That's fair.
Yes.
EG was very slump ridden. I know it was the whole COVID thing, et cetera, et cetera. The COG we saw on their game was not the COG we saw against C9. So we haven't seen what EG's really up to. But I don't think that they stand a chance in any role against Golden Guardian.
You're going to sit here and tell me that not Impact, Someday doesn't stand a chance against Licorice. Really?
Not realistically, no.
How?
Licorice looks like 2018 semifinals performance right now. Stixay looks like MSI finalist performance right now. River and Gory is the best mid lane jungle duo in the league, bar none.
Okay, you say that, but you're basing that off of one single series in which he beat Tenacity, who was perma counterpicked on weak side. He's like, Licorice is not getting perma counterpicked top this entire series versus EG. It's not happening.
Yeah, and top lane's a dead role though.
But Someday
the role doesn't matter.
Someday and Impact are two of the best players in the league at nullifying those that try to abuse counterpick. They have done that historically for years. I'm not saying that Golden Guardians can't beat them. They, by all means, they could. They could come out hot because I will agree with you. There is a route where Gory is back on his mid-game fuck shit and just absolutely tears up Jojo Pune having an off day. But Jojo Pune when he's on, Someday when he's on, and they're all starting to ramp up after being sick, I see no world where EG loses this series or even loses more than a singular game in this series. My prediction is going to be 3-0 EG.
It's a rude prediction to say that. I think coming off of the 100 Thieves game, Stixay is absolutely feeling himself. Having won the game the way he did, if they just won in like a normal fashion, it'd be like, yeah, EG is going to win. But they are riding a super high of having a banger series. I'd rather come off of a 3-2 than a 3-0 and go into my next series any day.
No way at all. I get where you're coming from with momentum, but at the same time, what have we seen in almost every single sport, every competitive environment where something goes long and you immediately go into a series where people are rested and confident? Almost every time it is a smash. The two examples that I will point to in the majority of cases, first is NHL playoffs and the team that has had to play longer. Granted, there's a physical element to it that plays a part that obviously doesn't happen in esports, but that's clear case number one. Two is the Minnesota Miracle, the biggest play ever You have momentum on Minnesota's side coming into an NFC Conference Championship game. And what do? They fall flat on their ass because the hype of that series takes away from what needs to happen the next week. That is a very difficult thing to overcome. It's the reason why in golf as well, the moment you get a birdie, the next hole you are statistically more likely to bogey than any other hole that you play in the round. It is just natural human psychology to come off of those series that are longer and have a little bit higher moments and just falter flat.
I'd argue the other way, though. I think it's harder if you come out of a perfect series, you're thinking, oh, this series needs to be perfect as well, and so does the next one. So does the next one.
I don't
and
think
then
they
you get inside get your hell.
There's no, and that 3-0 wasn't clean either. So I don't think they're looking like if they smashed them, sure, I'd agree with you. But that was not a clean 3-0 by any means.
It wasn't a clean 3-0, but it was a 3-0. A 3-0 is a 3-0.
Okay. So what if you were given $1,000 right now and told in Vegas, or not even no, if you were given $1 million and you could only put it on one specific score line to hit, what are you betting on?
One score line as in like end of the game or like a player's score line?
No, like series score. What is the series
EG's
score?
GG?
Yes.
3-1 GG.
3-1 Golden Guardians. You're staking $1 million on 3-1 Golden Guardians.
I think it's the freest money ever. The only reason I'm not saying 3-0 is because they're going to go up 2-0, they're going to get complacent, and then they're going to get smacked in the face, and then they'll bring their shit back together.
I don't know what to say then.
So everyone was talking about the CLG being snubbed for All Pro, and that they were getting snubbed. But Stixay, River, Licorice to an extent, not really. The only player I see as worse than on EG's side is Huhi over Volt.
I don't see how people made the argument for Luger personally. I agree with you on Stixay. Stixay only got beat by Double Lift, in my opinion, because Double Lift had the beginning of the split that was very strong and then closed it out very strong as well and was like the clear play through me win condition of 100 Thieves, whereas Golden Guardians, even though Stixay was playing well, having that pressure on you does add to it. But River, I'll also agree. I was torn on third pick jungle. I think Contracts, in my opinion, was the reason why CLG was so good. Whereas Golden Guardians, when they weren't slumping, was a combination of River and Gory. And then Stixay obviously performing well. So I'm not going to... I won't fully disagree with you on that. That has validity to it.
I'll also say the core of Golden Guardians roster, which is Stixay and River, that's like their two big tenets of play. Play better under pressure, and when they're backed against a metaphorical wall against better players.
You're probably not. Look, we'll see. But unfortunately, I have to cut this off right at 10 minutes. I got a bunch of other people I got to get to, so.
We can do the other take if you get back around to me.
I probably won't because it's going to be 11:30, 11:40 by the time this wraps up. So you have a good night, man. I will catch you on the next stream.
Later.
Adios. I think the next one in was Bazbal. Oh, let me drag him in. Bazbal, how we doing?
I'm doing fine on this fine evening.
How we feeling?
After that take, I don't know to be fully honest.
Hit me with yours.
I have a little bit less of a hot take, but I believe that if Flyquest were to win Worlds or MSI or Team Liquid, if they somehow make it to Worlds, would hurt the region more than would help it.
Okay, you come in here saying that this is a less spicy take.
Well, what do you mean?
Dude, you're asking for something that's never happened before. Golden Guardians realistically could have a good day against EG and upset them. That's not much to ask. You are asking us to upend 10 years of history in League of Legends to win Worlds and then complain about doing that and tell me that it's going to be worse for the region. And let me guess, your argument is going to be that the reason why it would be like that is because we're not adopting Western philosophy. We're importing the best players still. We're basically continuing the practices that are also causing problems despite leading to that same high.
I wouldn't necessarily say that, because I think importing players is an all right sentiment and something that can be done in the right manner. I take the example of Flyquest, for instance, as like, I'm fine with C9 doing it, because even with C9 having MNS and Berserker being imports and winning, they still have Fudge and Blabber that I believe can be number ones on that team, versus in my head, I only see Fly as being the way that they are because of Prince and Vikla.
How does that make them winning worlds for Flyquest bad for NA, though? Like, what's the downside that outweighs the positives? Because I get, if you want to consider the downside, sure, but you need to weigh that against the actual positives.
I guess I don't know if I've thought this fully through.
That's the look. By all means, I get where the subsection of the point is coming from, but the moment that an NA team wins worlds, that rejuvenates a lot of things here. It doesn't lead, like, us winning worlds does not fix League of Legends in North America. A lot of people that say that are just quite frankly wrong, but it does lead to increased eyeballs. It does lead to a lot of other positive things within our ecosystem that will eventually give us more resources, possibly give a bigger spotlight, and all that. That, like, there's no world where any negative caused by Flyquest and who wins the worlds for them offsets any of that in my mind. Other than maybe the other negative that I would give you is that it could increase salaries in North America even further, which would be freaking terrible.
I also just don't like the idea of Flyquest winning, mostly just because, again, I consider them a 3 import team, because even though Impact is not an import,
He
in my
still
head,
natively was.
yeah. And I think I just hate how they are doing it more than what a C9 team would do, I guess, because I would rather see C9 have 2 imports and have the rest be, even though I guess Sven is kind of that way, but
Yeah, Sven is exactly the same.
But he has the disadvantage of being role swapped, so I give him the benefit of the doubt.
Nah, if you are holding Impact to that standard, you also have to hold Sven. Like, by no means, I don't agree with that, but if you're going to use that philosophy, you have to be consistent with everybody. As Sean pointed out in chat, you also have to discount Fudge, because Fudge is Australian coming in. Like, you have to be consistent if you were going to apply one philosophy to one team and then translating that elsewhere.
I guess I just don't see Aussies as being imports personally, but that's just me.
Why, you do one too many shoeies with them and all of a sudden you're boys?
No, I don't know if it's just that. I think it's I think of it more as in, like, the actual definition, because Fudge has never been considered an import at any point, I don't think.
No, because whenever he was an import, I think during his year when he was in academy. I think he still would have been considered then. And then the reason why they put him in was because in 2020 the rule changed to allow OS to come in. And to the person in chat that said OS players still don't use an import slot, they now do. Any OCE player that was in the LCS this past year or coming into this year had the chance to declare themselves once and for all as a North American resident, or they would be OCE permanently, because the OCE, I think, now feeds into, like, the PCS and has, like, a qualification spot in their play. Nevertheless, it is no longer the case that we can just blanketly bring in Australian players into the LCS. The thing that I will say on this that I think a lot of people in chat don't necessarily consider here is that there are a large portion of players that just because a certain player does speak English or has been in North America for a long time there is just this thing about a player being from North America, being born and raised here, having a childhood here, that people just connect to better. And it's not, when somebody has that feeling, it's not necessarily them being like anti-import, or a lot of people will call it racist as well. It's not. It's just genuinely is they can't draw that connections, therefore they write it off. And not a lot of people do a good job of communicating that feeling. But just know that there are people that think that. There's a reason why Danny and JoJo Pune skyrocket in popularity quicker than some others. You can say the connection isn't real, but it's felt by people. Like, I don't know. I'm not even doing a good job of explaining it here. It is a common feeling, though. It is. It's more common than people give it credit for, whether it's valid or not. But anyway, I didn't mean to go on that tangent. Is there anything else you want to mention on this take?
I guess not.
I'm sorry that I depicted it so
No,
bad
it's
like that.
fine.
But anything you want to shout out while you're here?
Shout out as in what?
I don't know. Whatever the fuck you want.
College esports, I think, can be the future.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
See it.
See it. All right, the next person in chat, I believe, was Prime, but I don't see him here. I think it was just a comp. Oh, yeah, it was just a joke. I don't see Con there. Let me just check to see. Sean's was at 10:04, so I believe Sean is up next. Sean, my man. How we doing? Oh, hold on. You are muted in Discord.
Hey man, no technical difficulties.
Hey,
Totally
there
meant
we
to do
go.
that.
How's your night going?
It's going all right. It's going all right. How about you?
I mean, you've seen most of it, so whenever it's not work
pretty
or
good,
the
pretty
gym,
good.
it's here. So
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so my take essentially just boils down to I think that Team Liquid and 100 Thieves had unrealistic expectations put on them by the community, and that these, like, oh, the goats are coming back, or we're building like with the TL CK whatever kind of meme, and that the only time that ever really worked was just so recent with EG. But as Respawn was talking about, I think the meta fit them. I think they had the right coaching staff in place, and I actually think, to add on to this, that TL will come out the better for this than 100 Thieves will.
interesting. Why do you say that?
I think that in like the exit interviews that like Double Lift and Bjergsen were having with people like after the series, where they were sticking to one style, right? And Respawn talked about like that's a way for NA to succeed, which I slightly disagree with. Not that they shouldn't do that, but that should be like a foundational building tool.
I think
right?
that's more the point that he was referencing. Like,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
you cannot do what 100 Thieves did and expect to succeed.
Yeah. And I think that's his main point. I just want to make sure that like when people hear like that, and it's also really funny because Double Lift has previously said this on TSM teams, and I know that, obviously being formerly OPTSM fan, watching all their content, where he's like, yeah, we just try to diversify too much, but then like that's not good. We should just stick to what we're good at. And it's like, why are we having this realization again?
Yep.
You know?
Every time.
So
It's a circle that keeps spinning.
but that's because there's no foundation built, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the growing pains of spring and not making playoffs is better for the likes of Team Liquid, to where instead of just getting above the line of mediocrity for playoffs is not that much different for them. Like, I don't know, I don't want to talk about the whole nuke duck or the coaching thing.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't matter, but to me, but there needs to be something. Like, Tenacity was known for being a carry top laner, right?
Yep.
And there was a joke meme about his Ornn with the clip and playing weak side. Not that he can't, he's extremely talented,
Yep.
right? But we're not playing to his strengths. Like, if today you pulled in General Sniper and put him in the top lane, and you're like, okay, Sion, let's go. Why?
Yeah.
So that's just kind of like my main point, and I just think that both of these teams were marketed as teams that they were going to go to Worlds. I also think that this year is, to Respawn's point, the best parity, right? And I love it. And no one could have expected GG to do as well as they did, Dignitas to do as horribly as they did, although I hated the roster composition, so I kind of thought they were not making playoffs. No one, myself included, thought TSM would even be pushing for playoffs, right? So there is a lot more parity, the soup, as Mark used to call it, right? But there is, with that parity being there, we couldn't have been like, oh, this team has to be top 4, or this team has to be, playoff bound and stuff like that. So I think if TL just stick to their systems, air quote, using the C9 stuff, that they'll be better for it. And 100 Thieves is now in the position where they have to kind of retool and refocus, but at least I guess they've tried some stuff out.
The problem is I can see where you're coming from, and I can't fully disagree with it. But in my mind, I don't think the TL roster stays the same. I think they change out likely Piosik. I don't think he stays around long term, which changes the trajectory of the teams entirely. Then it's not an apples to apples conversation.
For sure. If there is a roster, also Piosik was not rumored until like very, very towards the end. Like Summit even had the oopsie of like naming someone like who I've been a huge fan of in terms of like the way that he plays around his lanes, and has always been seen as like the catalyst for his team. Like if he doesn't get anything going, the team just sucks.
Yep.
If you look at Bro in the early part, he was the reason why this year. But if there is a change, that's fine. But I also can't stand the people who are calling for changes on both of them, like actively calling for changes. Like, oh, we need to get, closer out. We need to get. I like how the dog and the dishes like doing stuff when I'm on. Just no, I'm just kidding. This is just memeing. I'm totally memeing.
No, I know.
No, it's funny. But if you're actively calling for changes like this, like I have seen people talk about Busio and Tenacity as needing to be like somehow replaced, and it's like,
Anybody that says that, I immediately just mute them on Twitter. I don't want it. I like people that have that and like try and validate it. I don't even deal with. Like my concern for 100 Thieves going into this offseason is I think you need a coaching change. And I'm not just saying like Nuke Duck can't be there for the full split. I mean, it is clear to me when rookies are not developing that there is a problem either with the coaching staff helping them develop or reining in players that might be preventing them from developing. And in this scenario, as much as I love the attention that Doublelift has brought to the team, if Doublelift and Bjergsen are forcing Busio and Tenacity on these picks that are clearly not beneficial to their long-term development, then I've got a problem with that. Because we're not bringing on these players to help Bjergsen and Doublelift win a title this year. We're bringing them on to be the faces of this franchise in 3 to 4 years. And that takes a different level of development, a different way of thinking about it than clearly what is happening right now.
there's like two different camps, right? You're either optimizing or you're developing, right?
Yeah.
But you cannot do both at the same time.
Bingo.
And every time that Doublelift has been on a team, they are optimized, right? He is arguably, I mean, he will be until Blabber wins a championship or whatever, again, or performs really well at Worlds, probably perennially a top 5 LCS player of all time.
Yeah.
Perennially, no matter how long everything goes. I don't want to get into the GOAT debate, but all of his teams also always play a certain way, except for 2020 TSM, where they played towards topside and enabled Broken Blade, right? Which is why everyone thought, like, I went on Hotline League, talked about it, Raz was on and said, Sean, sometimes you have crazy ideas, but this is right. And then they go 0-6 because they don't do the same thing and they don't ban Eve for Fnatic or whatever. But I digress. But that's literally been the exception to the rule for Doublelift teams. And to your point, yes, I think like Doublelift says, I really don't feel like coaches do anything. And it's like, okay, so your mentality already is dispositioned in a way to where you feel like there is not much.
Oh no, I think he froze. Chat, can you type in if I'm good? Okay, I'm good. This is just the worst timing in the world for his internet to cut out. Let me disable his video so that he's not stuck on that face. And then if he reconnects, he will. I feel so bad that he got cut off right at that moment. That sucks. Oh no. I'll give it like five more seconds, and then I'll drag him back.
That
Okay, there we go.
hold on.
You
Am
paused.
I alive?
Yeah, now you're good. You
Oh
you
my
paused
God.
at the worst possible time.
Someone clip it and ship it to me. I want to see it. No, yeah. My take was too good, and then Bezos was like, "Stop." No.
Yep.
No, but basically, like, so either your mantra or your experience from Double List point of view is like that he finds no value in coaches, right? He's not worried about the development of his rookies outside of the fact that I need them to be at a certain level and do a certain job, right? Because he is in the game. And from a coaching perspective, that is like understandable,
Yeah.
but it's not going to help the team. And it's not about making them the faces of the franchise, or, winning right now. The point for this team should have always been win to get top 3 or do that 4th place match with EU.
Yeah.
For like every single time. And the idea that we changed it just so that we could feel better in the now is, I think, a lot of like the cultural things and stuff that Respawn was talking about with why NA may not do anything good. And my answer to it is just finding systematic things to where maybe we move to LEC schedule and we have splits to where like G2 is able to experiment now because they're guaranteed MSI.
Yep.
Or we just use spring as a way to get better, but you want that MSI experience. So
Gotcha.
at the risk of getting disconnected again.
Yeah, and I gotta move on to the next call. We
Yeah.
we got 3.5 more to go plow through, and the wife's gonna
Yep.
kill me if I go too far over. So thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
For sure, man. Anytime. I appreciate it as well.
Have a good one. All right. Next up, somebody that has been to the New York City watch parties a few times now. One of our own, NerdyNurse. How's it going?
That's me. Yeah. Let's see. Can I turn on my camera here? Oh, not that one. Excuse you, sir.
Is that the chain chomp?
Oh yeah,
From
it's
Mario?
a light.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know why it's not working. Whatever. So my take, if you can call it one for esports, involves, of course, NerdyNurse, health and wellness. So I also kind of had a problem with the whole Thorin thing, especially when he said it wasn't a systemic problem. When we don't have an established health and wellness, like, comprehensive program plan.
Yeah.
I think that just comes from my background, which I've started working in an Sorry, hold on one second.
Just so you know, your video is gray. Not sure if you want to have the camera on, but it might be covered.
It's not. Because I can see myself on Streamlabs, so I don't know why it's not working.
Interesting. But it doesn't matter. I just want to let you know.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Let's see. Okay, so can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you perfectly fine.
Okay, perfect. Let's see.
So what do you, in terms of like steps going forward, what do you think needs to be done to bring us
Well,
in? Because you're more in tune with the medical profession than I ever will be. So I trust your guidance on this more than
so
more than-
yeah, that was kind of one of the things I was like the background I was coming from. I worked in many occupational health and wellness clinics, and I actually was picked up by my state's health department um, to create the first health and wellness program for my entire state.
Wow.
I was I was the first and only employee for over a year. And so I had to build their health program from scratch. I had to write all of their COVID policies. I had to write their entire program plan. Um, and so I really think that's something that organizations need to look at. When you look at the evidence and the research that's coming out in some of the healthcare journal articles, um, the largest complaints that are coming out are headaches and dizziness. 90% of studied esports players reported fatigue and eye strain. Uh, the most frequent complaint in a different journal article was eye strain, which shows you need to look more into that. And that journal article did list like a wheel basically that contained 5 uh, specific providers that had specific, I guess you would say, focuses for each player. I mean, this esports is a $10 billion plus like sphere. So I think we need to take some of that and invest it in our players' health and wellness.
I I completely agree with you. The problem that's gonna occur is, and me, to be clear, me saying this is I want all of this to happen. I just don't think it's going to, for the pure reason of, with all organizations entering a world of cost cutting as they try and make it into profitability, these supplemental things that the org can provide are gonna start to fade away. They'll still provide healthcare and options that players can pay to go have these resources on their own, but I think teams are gonna be less likely to have them themselves, as things kind of are touch and go for the next year and a half, 2 years. They should have them, but it also is one of those that if players wanted to guarantee that this was the case, they need to unionize, they need to have a collective bargaining agreement, and they need to negotiate terms with the league that would require every single team to have medical professionals and healthcare providers on staff to help them along through the process. Normally with traditional sports, people are hitting pro at 20 to 22, sometimes a little bit higher if you stay for all 4 years of college and you're a little bit later. So you're a little bit more well versed on life in general going into it. We're throwing these kids in at 16 years old in academy and 17 and just expecting them to know all this. So I'm not fully faulting the players for not unionizing and trying to force these issues. But at some point, the older players in the league really need to take the charge on this and help the younger guys through. Because you're 100% right. This was needed yesterday.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I think one of the sad parts is that they are so young coming in and they don't know what they don't know. So they don't know they deserve a comprehensive program. They don't know how to get help or where to go. So I think that even if they don't invest in a occupational health clinic as a part of their organization where there's like 5 people at all times with different specialties. They should at least have resources that are readily accessible for those specialties, and know how to get them to their players. Like I want to go way back to Coul, who asked way back in the chat, like, how is health and wellness done outside of NA esports? Who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
like, I
I
think there's a huge lack of transparency towards how players' health and wellness is handled. Um, I would love to know, like, especially how Korea handles it. I have spoken to some people who have told me they have all these dedicated teamers and whatever, but not really sure because it's not really being talked about.
No, and without a collective bargaining agreement, it never will be. Like, unless there's a legal vehicle for disclosure, it's just not going to happen ever.
Yeah, I mean, we know. I mean, other sports, professional sports, like we know they have a health team, but we don't know what they do. Like, so it's not uncommon not to know the inner workings. But when it comes to players having to retire early or having chronic illnesses as a professional player, I think, I mean, it's a player's health, and I think that to your point that it would never happen, I think, which is something that my state health department probably thought too, because they went the entire lifetime of being the state's health department, not having one. But when I put together the proposal and showed them, this is how much revenue you're losing when you lose people to injury and illness.
Yeah.
Like,
you stroke their ego by doing it. You gotta play into
you gotta be honest. One of the driving forces for change or new policy or new program is financial revenue. They want to know, is this going to make them more money than they're going to lose? And I know there's also a big discussion around, are esports orgs or things like that, are they overvalued? Are they,
Spoiler warning, they
gonna,
are.
right? Well, I mean, that's another thing. Like, should they focus on sustainability in doing something like FTK, who was like content creation first, and or diversifying or figuring out how to not be overvalued so they can put in the value for their players. But that's the thing that you kind of have to talk to them about, is, which again requires more transparency, is like, I mean, how much money did like RNG lose when Uzi left? Because he had type 2 diabetes, he was physically unwell. Like, how much money or time is invested in players like and then they don't get out what they want because they're injured?
Yeah, I understand.
I think we're getting there, maybe. I mean, there's like 5 or 6 other things that need to be addressed when you have an esports team, like mental and emotional wellness, financial I mean, financial wellness is huge. Like, are they providing insurance, or they're telling their players and providing resources on how to get health insurance? Because as we all know, America is not super friendly in that regard. So even if they're ready and willing to get care from a PCP outside or a professional outside that's not contracted or doesn't come to their organization, what if they can't afford it? Like, what if they don't know? They're, again, like we talked about, they're young, they're coming in, and they don't know these things. So, like, do they have the support and the resources there? Is their sleep being monitored, their nutrition, future health? I feel like a lot of things should be more prioritized.
Understood. Unfortunately, I do need to keep this moving. I got 3 more people I gotta get to, and the wife's gonna kill me if I don't end this in a reasonable. I know you didn't. It's the running joke. I'm just gonna keep saying it now. But thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. I hope Chad and people listening to this in general learn a little bit more about some of the things that need to develop behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's one of the things I'm most passionate about. So, um, hopefully, we'll get there.
One day. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
I believe Coul is next. Cool, my man.
Hello, hello, hello.
How we doing?
The stream. I'm doing well. How are you?
Same old, same old. You know the deal.
Late evening for you on the East Coast, huh?
Yeah, it's now 11:35, so it's getting there.
I can quickly give you my take. I wanted to talk. Actually, this is where I wanted to hear your opinion on this. But I
boy.
think that League needs better content/discussion spaces for fans, and especially with recent trends, primarily just it's looking like a TikTok ban potentially, and Twitter also. It's looking like they're moving towards paywalling the platform a little bit. I think both of those are really going to hurt the LCS,
Yeah,
and I just think we don't have good alternatives right now.
Twitter, like a TikTok ban sucks, but ultimately I don't think it impacts the LCS all that much. There's a lot of other platforms that can replace what TikTok is doing. YouTube Shorts can fill in, Instagram, like there's a lot of other platforms that have ramped up in the process to try and compete with them that I think will eventually, like, you'll see an audience shift over until a new platform comes. So I'm not worried about that. Twitter, I'm petrified of. Twitter going away is going to be a problem because the majority of League Esports information, engagement, everything around it is either on YouTube or Twitter. And if you want news, you go to Twitter. And like you said, there is no replacement for it. But the thing is that that's not even an LCS discussion because the LCS has forums for fans to communicate and talk to each other, whether that's Discord, whether that's YouTube itself. They have like that other virtual platform or something, like something I forget what it is.
The Green Park thing.
Yeah, it's not, whatever that thing is. So like
Does anyone use it?
I haven't, so I don't know. But like those I'm not worried about. Like active fans of the league will ultimately find a place to talk to each other. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
It's the engagement that reaches the general gaming audience that is going to collapse. And that's going to be a problem that I don't know how you solve, but that's going to be a problem for everybody. So like every industry, everywhere is going to be on the same page trying to figure it out. So like while it's going to suck and it will hurt us more so than most other places that already have established media outlets, it's it's going to be tough. As for who should lead it, I do disagree that I don't think it should be the LCS and Riot. I think you need to empower creators to take the charge on this because creators naturally can just be more authentic than Riot can. You can be in these discussions. You can be on the ground with people a lot easier as a creator when you've cultivated your own audience and you're still trying to grow that than Riot and the LCS can. They should just have to worry about the league and making sure it's maintained at the highest level and still have their own marketing campaigns. But you need to put more faith and trust into the creators, which they are starting to do. So I am optimistic when looking at that.
True. I think the thing I was thinking when talking about Riot LCS is I think creators naturally kind of have to go where their customers, quote unquote, or they have to go where the viewership is, and so they'll always adapt. But I guess the concern was more, I wish there was like more centralized places for communication slash discussion. Because
Yeah.
I think like Travis talks about this all the time with how the LCS really struggles with sports marketing. And I think without Twitter, I don't know where I would find news on like the patches or just like format changes. Like where do we start? Because you can some of the platforms like YouTube or whatever are a little more one-sided, right? Like I might hear what Riot is thinking about a patch notes or whatever, but it's less about like YouTube comments. I don't think are the greatest conversation space.
Yeah.
And so I wish they would maybe push. I don't know. I don't know where they could step in. I think the only place they could possibly try and do something like this is Reddit.
Yeah,
they
but
had, like, a better
Reddit
moderated
stigma
Reddit, yeah.
stigma's already gone. Like
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
true.
happening. Like that's the thing that I think people fail to realize is it's not gonna be an existing platform that takes over. It's gonna be something new. Somebody's gonna try and push the envelope and and basically just come in with a pure replacement product. I know Hive tried for a little bit, but Hive's not gonna be it. And I don't have a good answer at the moment. I really don't. I don't think anybody does. But you are 100% right though that how we get that news out there is we got to start planning for the backup soon and start trying to diversify our audiences to other platforms and other people and other sources to be able to withstand this hit that's inevitably going to be coming.
I think they've started advertising an LCS Discord, or at least I think I've seen it on broadcast because that's where they get the suggestions thing.
Yeah,
I think
I
something
meant
like
it.
that is a good start, because I think community discords are where a lot of people talk, but it's just you lose the ability to gain reach. I think
Yeah,
we're really struggling.
you are stuck with the audience that you have in there.
Yeah.
It's not like if something blows up on Twitter, you know, and Barstool covers it, like then it's like, oh shit, well Barstool covered something League of Legends, and it extends well beyond just like your normal sphere, and that's the whole point of social media that gamers don't fully like. Obviously, the people like us that are talking about this conversation obviously get that, but the majority of gamers don't even care. They're like, I got my circle, and that is what it is. Like, no, the whole point of this is to reach out to new people. But
That's also, I guess, why TikTok was. I think it's the best at reach right now, at least organic
oh, it is
reach.
because it's a search engine as well. If I like as
Yeah.
of right now, if I need to know something about a current event going on, I go to TikTok and search. I do not go to Twitter. I don't go to anything else because TikTok will give me a video instantly on what I need to know and all the information behind it. Whereas Twitter, you're searching through a billion different things and you can't ever fully find out.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see if some of the alternatives can fill that
They
hole.
got to go out after
But
this. But, yeah, I got 'em.
But yeah, that was my. I wanted to hear your thoughts. I know that's somebody who grew on TikTok for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've had to start focusing on some other platforms because I've noticed my growth on TikTok has plateaued to a certain extent. My views have dropped off pretty significantly with one of the algorithm changes about 2 months ago, and it's never fully recovered. But I've been monitoring every other creator as well. This seems to be a universal change that League is just not being pushed out. But I think us creators on the platform are a little bit slow to adapt to some of the changes that are being made, and I need to put my nose to the ground and be better with that if I want to try and help grow things. But that's on me and nobody else to figure out at the moment.
Makes sense.
But I got to get to everybody else. Thank you so much for calling in, man. I really
Thanks for doing
appreciate it.
this.
Oh,
Yeah,
no
take
problem.
care, David.
Adios. All right, I'm saving Paul for last. Mounizle, I know, or Rico, I know you put your chat in here. Mounizle did message me prior to, so I am gonna pull him. Or actually, wait, no, sorry, Mounizle, Mounizle's on LA time. Rico's on East Coast time with the family. I'm sorry, Rico, you were gonna go first. Rico, how we doing?
What's up, man? Doing good.
You tired?
Yeah, of course I'm tired, man.
It's only 11:42. Come on.
Bro, I'm old. I have a kid, okay?
Okay.
You know, the only person you have to worry about is Emily. and it
what do
looks
you
like
mean?
you're sleeping on the couch.
My dogs are my children. Thank you very much. No, I'm not one of those
Ah,
people.
God.
I'm not one of those people. I swear to God, I'm not.
Yeah, okay. Well, bet if I look at your taxes, you have 2 deductions, or whatever you call those people.
Nope. No, I do not have 2 dependents.
All right. So
So
to make this short and sweet, I think whoever wins tomorrow's game will win the whole entire thing.
I'm assuming you mean. Wait, tomorrow is Flyquest C9, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. 100%.
Okay. Well, I guess that's pretty fast. All right. Have a
Nah,
good night now.
Look, I ultimately think Cloud9 is going to take that series. I've believed from the beginning of the split that I think Cloud9 will just ramp up. But there is a very clear world where Vikla steps up and Flyquest wins. So
Wait.
I
Well-
do think there is a chance that it flip-flops in the grand finals, but I think ultimately the winner of this one should have the advantage.
Yeah, because I personally, I'm not sure if you've seen the games, but I think EG is finally back to their original form,
They are.
and whoever loses is going to face EG, full power EG, which means that if whoever wants to make it to the finals is going to have to pull out all the stops on EG, which gives the other team the opportunity to dissect and come up with a plan.
Yep. I'm fully with you. My question would be, you said whoever wins tomorrow wins it all, but are they winning it all in a rematch or against EG? Do you think EG takes the winners final
No,
or losers final?
no. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think EG is a very good team, but um, they're definitely exploitable. Like Vulcan pointed out, if Vulcan isn't the Vulcan we normally see, then it's definitely gonna be an easy game for the loser of tomorrow's game.
Okay. I'll just say this. When was the last time that Someday and FBI missed finals?
So I remember when before they got into 100 Thieves, I guess.
I mean, technically the first split that they were on 100 Thieves. Spring of 2021. They missed finals. They finished like 4th, I think, in the split, and like lost to I forget who they lost to in playoffs, but they didn't make it. But ever since that moment, 2021 and all of 2022, they've made it to finals every single time.
Yeah, but didn't like what 3 out of those 4 attempts they lost.
Yeah, we ain't gotta talk about that part. But I honestly I think EG wins over Golden Guardians fairly easy, and then we finally get to test whether FBI and Someday have actual stage fright or not, because they have not won. They barely squeaked out a win over EG with Kaori subbing in over Danny last split, and just in general when they're in stadiums, they have not looked the same. So I'm curious to see how this goes, and we will only find out if they beat Golden Guardians and make it to that Saturday match.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Sorry, I'm tired.
Nah, you're good. I'll let you go. Have a good night, man. I got 2
Alright,
more
have
to
a good
get
night,
to.
man. All right,
Adios.
peace.
No, they just have to beat. They'll go out shortly. It'll be fine. 2 more. 1, the TL fan himself, Mr. Mounizle, DCCS throwback. What other introduction do I got to give here?
My
Pitch
man,
black in
it's
his
been a minute.
goddamn room.
What's
Holy
up?
shit.
What's up? What's
Dude,
up?
you know lights exist.
Nocturne ulted my room, so sorry about that. But the reason why my room is so dark is because I'm in the process of cleaning my room up, and there's clothes all over the top bunk of my bed. So, yeah. I don't want to show it in the background, so that's why my room is like Nocturne ulted. So, yeah. How have you been, man?
You know, we're living life. We're doing our thing out over here on the East Coast.
Yeah,
Life
yeah.
is good.
Dude, I haven't seen you since Detroit Finals in summer of 2019.
I know. Might I remind everybody in chat, the last time Mounizle saw me, he got his ass kicked in Connect 4, and your boy got his first ever bit of Team Liquid merch. So
I definitely didn't sandbag to give my homies free shit.
yeah, bullshit.
No, actually, I think you're one of the ones that actually whooped my ass.
That
But mind
may
you,
or may
I
not
was
be
on my
because-
feet I was on my feet for nearly 6 hours.
Excuses are like assholes. Everybody's got one. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Well,
Next-
to be fair, I guess you were in the line for most of the times. But
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I mean, you were working, Grant, but no, I'm not gonna claim this.
yeah, look
you
at what
got
he's giving me.
you got many games of practice before going into me.
Practice?
You should have Connect 4 down
Dude.
to a science, in the same way that I can promise you that I will never lose a game of tic-tac-toe in my life, ever.
Fair enough. But at the same time, we were like shotgunning like games of Connect 4. It was like speed runs. Like we gotta play fast. We have a big line. We gotta push out all this stuff. And then towards the end, the guy that like the community lead comes over and he's like, we don't want to carry all this shit back or fly it back to LA, so we gotta give out as much of it as possible. There's a funny story from Detroit as well, but I don't know if you have too much time for it. It's a little short, but
If you want to, go ahead.
so TLDR, Steve threw my Team Liquid hoodie into the crowd, so somebody has a TL Mounizle hoodie.
I
Sorry,
mean,
my camera keeps like.
at least he bought you dinner afterwards, so he somewhat made up for it.
The sad thing about that. Wait, did that end up happening?
Because
Dude,
I
I'm
remember
not gonna lie, I forgot.
when you guys were leaving, I remember me and Jones were walking out to our car, and I overheard everybody from TL like trying to figure out where the dinner was gonna be, because Steve was throwing a big company dinner that he was paying for the win.
Yeah, I think we went to that, but there weren't seats or something, so we ended up going to some like other like really nice place. So we went to like this other nice place, and obviously like it's on the big man card. So
I was gonna say,
I
there's
guess
no way that you paid.
technically he did pay for it.
Yeah, so you got the
Technically, he
dinner.
did
So
pay for it.
that's worth the
Yeah.
trade off of the hoodie.
Yeah, he ended up. I mean, they ended up giving me a care package to make up for it. But yeah,
Oh, that's good.
besides the point. But yeah, dude, it's been a minute. So I was gonna bring up the point that Sean brought up earlier regarding rookie players kind of being shitted on when it's literally their first split in the pro. Like, I know they played like maybe 1-2 years of academy or whatever, but it's a whole different ball game, I feel.
Yeah.
But you know, Sean pretty much like touched on most of it. So props to Sean for thinking about that topic. But
Yeah, you can call him. Just call him out. Be like, you dick. You took my.
it's funny because I sent you a screenshot of what I wanted to talk about, like maybe like 2 hours in advance, but it's alright. Early bird gets the worm.
I didn't see you in the voice chat. I was just pulling people that were in here, and unfortunately, I
that's
did not
fair.
check like anything else. So that's my bad.
No, that's my fault for not being here on time. But I don't know how much of this I could talk about, but for the most part, you know, there's a lot of layoffs going on in the esports sphere right now.
And Disney as
so-
well.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the TL community team was one of them, so I'm kind of in limbo right now. Not sure what I'm doing, but it is what it is. But I got this feeling that now would be a really good time to concentrate most of my energy and effort into maybe bringing back something like DCCS. What do we think?
The only thing that I would say is that, and I believe me, I've had this conversation with all the original DCCS guys multiple times. I thought the original idea was brilliant, of having all of the teams have representatives that play on their behalf. You could tie it in with the orgs in some capacity. Like, that is a phenomenal way to engage with your community with very minimal to low effort, other than just making sure that everything is riding smoothly and that there's no major issues. Thank you to DCCS for messing that one up under old leadership, not any of the new guys. I love Travesty and all the guys up there. I just think there's too many alternatives out there right now. I think you got the low budget LCS, you have Aegis, you have, I mean, I'm doing the performance league with Fit Gamer through like the Cloud9 training program. That's a little bit different. It's obviously paid to get in, so it's I wouldn't put it in the same category. There might not be anything necessarily for like LCS teams, and there might be a chance to organize something like that. But I just think I don't know. I'm on the
Because
fence.
the reason why I bring this up is because I don't know if you remember, but Immortals held this like Bud
Yeah.
Light Bronze Battle tournament thing.
Yeah.
And fun fact, I organized the TL team pretty much from player management, recruitment, scheduling scrims, and all that nonsense.
Yeah, I remember seeing you tweet about that.
It was fucking amazing, and it kind of, that's where it started for me, you know? I was like, DCCS return, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you did bring up a lot of good points. I feel like in that time, like, you know, when was that, like 2016, 17,
started
18?
in 2018.
Yeah, that at that time, those kinds of tournaments were popping, I feel like, and then Riot brought in this new like rule regarding tournaments being held and stuff. But
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I was kind of reminiscing the glory days. I'm not gonna lie. I looked up the channel, watched some clips, saw a YouTube video interview that I did with Travis. I was like, man.
Jaber just pulled in his his TSM DCCS application into the Optic Discord. I think like 2
Really?
days ago. Yeah. So like
Wow.
believe me, it like everybody that played in it, it's still on their minds whether they like actively acknowledge it or not. And I think most people would agree that that is a good potential that is a good potential for fans. The issue where I see this happening is League of Legends will eventually get Premier Mode that's in Valorant. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that at all, but it's basically DCCS built into the game of League of Legends or Valorant. You go in with a team of 5 and you play a regular season that feeds into playoffs, and then it goes from there. I think
Budget Clash, basically. Or no, Clash is a budget version of that.
Yeah.
Honestly,
very much so.
I don't know if you played, but
I did. And then the thing with Valorant is you can qualify from Premier Mode directly to the VCT tour.
That is pretty crazy.
Exactly.
Imagine, wait, do you have to be a certain rank though for that, or no?
Not all the details are fully out yet, but basically like when you hit, say, like the League of Legends equivalent of like Challenger and all your players are there, your Premier tier will be at the point where you qualify for points. And I'd imagine it's just like the top. They'll probably.
You'd have to be like Immortal plus maybe.
Yeah, probably. What they'll probably do is they'll
That's
take
like the equivalent
all
of like Master.
They'll have like a cutoff of like, this is your roster registration deadline for Premier for this season, and they'll take the top elo or the top average elo of like the 10 best teams and put them in the division that can get you points. And then you basically just have to climb solo queue and then try and like keep working your way up there as well. Like I think that would end up being the way that happens.
Yeah, I heard of it, but I didn't like do extensive research on it or anything.
The thing is that like what DCCS is slowly being incorporated into the games themselves. And I think LCS teams are going to be more likely to. I mean, I don't know. I could very well be wrong on this. What I would say is reach out to Avali. See if you can have that conversation with her, since obviously, you know, there's that existing relationship that you did the TL team whenever it was done last, and she obviously helped run that. See if that's something that she can help pitch and connect with the organizations and go from there, because you're going to need buy-in from the majority of them.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm pretty sure there's still some existing members from the previous iterations of DCCS that, you know, pulled out and whatnot, and probably won't be as big a fan of it, but yeah.
It was an
CS,
Charlie just
CS
said it
series,
was
yeah.
it was a IMT thing with Bud Light. So in that case,
they asked her in Flowers to cast
it. So I mean, I would just start reaching out to the teams, honestly. Like at that point, see if you get any feelers
from like, I want to say almost every org. I don't know.
Just know that's going to be a lot of time and a lot of effort for little to no return. Little to no return on that. So unless you really love it and like you really love that system and pay is irrelevant and you're not trying to use it to climb into an org or do anything else like that, then I'd say go for it. But if you're doing it because in the back of your mind it's a way to work your way back into the industry, I would say don't.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a black hole in a sense.
Yeah,
That'll like end up consuming me. But yeah.
like your room.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, I got one more caller that I got to get to
Yeah.
to
Go
close
take care
out
of
the
the
night.
OG. All right, brother. It was nice talking to you, man. Good shit. You're popping off with everything, man. Love to see it.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Have a good night.
There's one last guest that I have for you all. He's a very special guest. He can join the channel on his own. I'm not going to drag him in here. He has his own power to do so. So I'm going to let him be an adult and figure it out on his own. I can't hear you at the moment.
Oh, I had my mic muted. I'll drag myself in.
Welcome back. We go full circle. A whole episode without you and then close it with you.
Yep.
And you're ditching out on me next week too. You motherfucker.
I know. I finally get to go on leave for a little bit. But my take is that LCS teams should be giving up on players, essentially. Not really, but they should be actually using their rookies, because right now LEC is showing that at least slotting in a rookie into, obviously the org has to be kind of decent and the roster has to be decent, but slotting in rookie junglers has been working very well in LEC. And rookie players in general, I think that they're at least building up interest in their lower league by bringing in these rookie players, and it would help LCS a lot because one, you're going to help the lower league, you're going to make people watch it more, and two, you're going to get talent cycling instead of just recycling old talent, much like, I don't mean to call them out, well, he just came here, but the way TL did, just going to the LCK graveyard and trying to get whoever they could.
Yep.
Instead of doing that, they could be cycling their talent, which I know they did bring in 2 rookies, so it kind of makes it an awkward argument, but I think there is a lot of merit to bringing in players into a system that's already been preset and has players who've been in it for a while.
I agree with you. I do. I think, granted, the quality of rookies is going to be a little bit different between NA Amateur and EU, but I think that
sure.
I think that bridge is slowly being torn down, or not. Well, no, that's a shitty analogy. I think the gap is starting to close between the two, and I would like to honestly see somebody just randomly pick up Moose Hater and just put him on the LCS stage. And just watch Moose Hater Garen play, or just like use it to consume a ban and put him on tank duty anyways. Like, shit, why not? Fuck
yes.
it. That'd be more fun to watch than fucking Armoot try and have his Gnar banned out and then just int all season.
True. And my thing is too is that I do agree, like Mo puts a good point, that like it can be a slippery slope, because what I'm trying to make sure is that people don't think I'm saying like we just need to keep recycling quickly. And I understand LEC is really aggressive in it, but the thing is that top regions are like that. Like, that's just how it is. Like, LPL does not care. Like, LPL is cycling through every player they can get their hands on to see which one's actually good, and they just pray one of them eventually sticks. I know, like, LCK was doing that for a minute. They've started to slow down, though, now that they're all kind of finding players who are working, and you're going to have those moments where you slow down. But you can tell LEC... No, and LEC is, like, right now in that stage where they're like, you know what, we need to like win something. Like, it's been a while since we won MSI. Like, I know that's still a huge deal and they're the only Western team to do it, but it's been a minute since a Western team has done anything, and now they're recycling like crazy. Like all LEC teams are, and that's what I think you should do to try to get back on top. Kinda. I just don't. The problem is, I can really feel like my take could be taken by a team, and they just go, "Oh, let's just drop everybody every split
Yeah.
until we eventually hit." And it's like, no, that's not what I mean. I mean, you need people there who understand your system, but moving one or two out every split won't kill people because, I mean, not to flame the people, but a plays all of like tacticals, like those kinds of guys. I think we've known for about 2 years now that they're probably not gonna cut it.
Yeah.
Like, and moving on from them won't kill you. Like even TSM did with Neo. Like, granted, they did the worst thing they could have done, which doesn't shock me because I'd cheer for a bunch of
Put
bums
in
right now.
Wild Turtle. They put in a
But
veteran
yeah,
player
they
instead.
instead of doing what I'm trying to say and put in a new guy, because we've seen Neo for a minute, we know what his skill ceiling is at this point. They were like, let's just put in Wild Turtle, which I would have appreciated if they would have figured something out. But I was at least happy last year they tried with Extinct so we could know.
Yeah,
They tried with
and
Soul.
Extinct, Takeover, Soul,
Yeah.
like they all got chance, and like that was fun to watch, and like that was the discussion point.
Yeah.
And look, these players are not always going to work out on first try. The player that I will continuously point to is Adam. Adam was memed on for such a long period of time. For, he only plays Olaf, he only plays these few champions, and it's like, look, he's clearly, yeah, that style didn't work in the system that he was trying to be slotted into, but he at least got a chance, and he showed, okay, this guy's got decent mechanics. Maybe we can make him work somewhere. And it took, 2 years? And now he's on the top team in the LEC. Now, whether BDS will actually stay that way or not, we don't know. But Adam looks freaking good. Really damn good. Still playing that exact same style. That
Yeah.
it's like, you just gotta give people a chance, and you gotta try and fit things in. And it's not like the difference between that and Tactical, which I think Tactical is a great example. Tactical plays the same style as everybody else. It's nothing new. It's not like you're not plugging him in saying, okay, this could really make the difference. It's like, no, you know exactly what you're getting. Whereas Adam, it's more of a risk when you put him in because, yeah, he is only good on actually, you know who's the perfect comparison? Closer.
Who? Yeah.
Closer is the Adam of the LCS, where he's got like 3 or 4 champions. Really freaking good on when he gets them. And when those champions are in meta, it's over. You force them on anything else, doesn't look so great. And you can't seem to make it work. But you slot them into a team that allows them to play that style and has good enough players that are drawing bans elsewhere that opens up the pool to consistently allow for things like this, then you're fine. But if you put somebody like Closer on 100 Thieves where nobody else is good enough to the point where they're triple banning him out, then you're cucked.
And you have, I think, like the team that shows the best example of what you can do with, albeit they get imports, so it kind of hurts the argument of bringing our own in. But still, C9, the way they introduce rookies into their roster is exactly what I'm trying to say you should do. Like, they take a roster, they kind of pick and play with what they can. Like, they snuck in Fudge at one point, and they put him with a good roster. He got to develop and be great. Then they had Sven move over to that support, and they bring in Berserker, who gets to be great with the kind of roster that's put together, doing something. Now they're bringing in MNS into a roster that is pre-built, really good. We knew they'd be good with basically anybody in mid lane, but you put a guy who's actually good in mid lane, and he ends up panning out. Like, with the right coaching staff and the right roster, you can really work rookies in and get them good.
Yeah.
Now, I know they're picking up super hype rookies, so people are going to argue, there's not a ton of these rookies just sitting around, but there's a ton of rookies actually just sitting around, not to shock people.
Yeah.
And you could probably slot them in, and they might not pop off as hard as C9, and that's tough. But
I will also agree with chat. Fudge was not a rookie when he came in.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point.
But there are other examples of rookies that do come
Yeah.
in and slot, not necessarily to that high of a level.
That was my bad.
But they're ultimately, I think there are a good bit of players in NA Academy or NA Challengers now that I would be fine taking a shot on and at least giving them a split. Especially if you're like one of these teams in summer, like Dignitas, where you know that it's just not going to work out. Just cut the salary with Jensen and crew and just sign like these players for like 100K and just keep some of the veterans on there to try and help them develop, but like play some money ball. If you got some players that are willing to buy in and play with some rookies and, you know, take a YOLO shot at it, fuck it, why not?
Yep. Because I mean, Dig ended up finding a good ADC.
Yeah.
Like
Tomo's
Tomo's pretty nice. Now the rest of the roster, they're gonna have to keep plugging and playing.
Exactly, but you keep doing that, and at some point it might work out.
Yeah, like you bring in Tomo into, I'd say a relatively, I guess not stable, but you bring him into a core of players who know what they're doing, and you can at least see if Tomo's good enough, and then you just keep trying to slowly upgrade from there.
Yeah. Anyways, it is 12:08.
But we'll see.
You and I could talk more off stream, but I do need to end this so I can start exporting it over to YouTube.
I need to go to bed pretty soon because I gotta be at a plane in like 3 hours.
Oof. Have fun with that.
Yep.
Stream, thank you all for tuning in. This has been one of the higher viewed nights in a while. I guess viewer calls just naturally does that. So thank you all for tuning in. I'll be live on Saturday playing some more games. We obviously have LCS both tomorrow and Friday. You can expect a YouTube video from me on Friday or Saturday, sorry. And that's pretty much it. Some pretty good takes tonight. So hope you all have a good one. Adios.